And there we roll. Okay, thank you so much. So, we welcome, I'll say it again, we welcome Professor Harris to the studio. We're talking about curiosity today.
Yeah.
And can I start this off with saying how we got interested in this subject and what you did to get interested in this subject?
Absolutely.
Okay, so you have spent, with the exception of this morning, the entirety of the last month not looking at yourself, at a reflection of yourself in a mirror, off a spoon, or anything else.
As much as possible, yes.
So, why?
I was curious. So I'm in my 40s. I'm a woman. I have been given a lot of cultural storylines about what that means.
Right.
And I wanted to really anchor into myself and what it would be like to not experience myself through, am I having a good hair day or a bad hair day?
Right.
Where are these wrinkles coming from? That kind of thing.
Right.
And I really had a lot more open-ended questions. I didn't have a lot of expectations. I just wanted to see what it would be like, how I would feel, how I would picture myself, how my behaviors would change. And so it was just, it was mostly just curiosity.
All right. And you had obviously had never done this before.
Well, so we've talked,
Right.
but yeah, in my early 20s, I was hanging around with a lot of very beautiful people. I was actually dating somebody that
Physically beautiful.
physically beautiful and actually beautiful all the way around.
Okay, all right.
But it just so happened the guy that I was dating was named like in people's top 50 most beautiful or whatever, right? And I remember I went to like the photo shoot and there's all these beautiful people, and I remember just thinking I really wanted to identify and strengthen my inner beauty,
Right.
and to step away from something that's so transient,
Right.
and quite honestly not really that important to being a good person.
Superficial.
It is, but we have a bias for beauty, and there's something in psychology called the halo effect, where if we see somebody that's beautiful, we
Right.
start making all of these attributions like they're kind, they're nice, they're compassionate, they're smart.
Right.
And then we look for all the reasons that we're right.
Right.
And so if there's something that discredits that, maybe we see them be mean, we go, well, that's just a one-off. They're actually very nice because they're so beautiful. And so we have these storylines associated with it. And so I wanted to see what it was like to step away from that. And it was really insightful to just sort of build and devote more of my time to becoming a kinder person.
How and did it change your behavior in the last month? Has your behavior changed?
Yeah, so one of the differences between when I did this in my 20s and doing it now, I read a research article that said that people are perceived more beautiful when they smile.
Right.
And so obviously, no mirror, I can't put makeup on, I don't do my hair. And so I smiled a lot more because there was a part of me that still wanted to be perceived as beautiful. So I smiled a lot more, like
Right.
all the time.
Right.
I also noticed that I looked at the reflection of myself even stronger in the people around me. So another term in psychology that we use is looking glass self. And that is, if I'm trying to know myself, I look to the people that I trust around me. So maybe as a young child, my parents were like, oh, this is Mel. She's very curious. She's very kind. She loves books. And I don't really know who I am. So I go, yeah, that sounds right. And then I develop those skills more and more and more. Right. And so the people around us reflect different parts of ourselves and they intensify it. And I noticed that fortunately I was around a lot of very wonderful, loving friends and family. Right. But when their face would light up when I would come in a room, I would go, that's me. That's, and it's not, oh, that's my great hair day. That's me that they see. And it was really fun to see that part illuminated a lot more.
Let me ask you this. So let's say you have two absolutely beautiful, physically beautiful people. Uh-huh. They don't know each other, right? Like I'm kind of thinking of the Housewives of Orange County or one of those shows where these two physically beautiful people don't know each other. Uh-huh. Yet one may be judgmental of the other strictly because of that beauty and dislikes that. Is there the shallowness of that jealousy? Is that a shallow thing? Is that an inner thing? Is that an inner beauty problem?
I think it's a lack of abundance perspective.
Okay.
So
explain that to me, please.
Okay, so we have different orientations towards life.
Right.
So if we perceive everything as a lack of abundance, like there's only so much beauty. You can think of a pie. There's only so many pieces in the pie. Then something like love or beauty or health, we go, oh, there's only 8 pieces. If they have one, I don't, or I have less of a chance of having that. So we become very competitive in our nature. Whereas, it's absolutely ridiculous to think that just because there's a beautiful person, that there's not enough beauty in the world or not enough love. And so if we have an additive model where I can be beautiful and you can be beautiful and there's plenty of beauty to go around, then there's not that competitiveness. And that lack of abundance perspective, it does drive a lot of that stuff like jealousy or shallowness.
Right. And it makes for great TV ratings too, by the way.
It does. I've never actually watched one of those shows.
Neither have I. But
I feel like, I would like the reality shows that are way too boring where everybody gets along. So they say nice things to each other.
Likewise, they sit around just being nice.
Right.
Yeah.
That would probably not make the best TV.
Right. So curiosity is defined as a quality related to inquisitive thinking, like exploration and investigation, and there's a desire to gain knowledge or information. I find myself in a constant state of curiosity. I find myself willing to be taught, willing to learn, willing to, a friend could send me a book about something I have no interest in, but I open up that book and I can't put it down for some reason. Is it the driving force behind human development? Have we gotten better as a species because of our curiosity?
Yeah, curiosity plays a huge role. And when you look at things on a physiological level, whenever we get those chemical hits that make us want to do it again, you can think, okay, this was adaptive. This was wired into us for a particular reason. And so we do know that when we are learning or we experience novel things, that we do get those chemical hits that make us feel good, that make us want to do it again. And so if you look at our evolution as a species, if we weren't curious, we wouldn't have fire. We wouldn't have, absolutely. Right. So a wonderful...
Is dopamine, so dopamine is what's released when we're satisfied once we've learned something, right?
So there's 2 different kinds of curiosity when we're looking at the research from a research perspective.
Right.
And one is deficit curiosity. And that's more like, I want the answer to this question because it's going to make me feel more safe or secure or superior, or serve my ego because now I know something and maybe you don't. So that kind of curiosity actually doesn't give us the same chemical benefit as when we pair curiosity with its sister strength, which is humility. So when we pair humility and curiosity, and you exemplify this wonderfully saying, you got a book, you don't want to read it, you read it. I'm pretty sure that was me that sent you that book. Because you can think of times where you've been wrong.
Right.
And you can think of times and recall things where not knowing actually was beneficial. Right. And so when you pair those 2 things together, where you have that drive to learn because it's more intrinsic, because it is something that's a driving force, like, your life is so defined by, then that's when you get those chemical benefits.
So it was a book on cynicism. And I was quite cynical when I received it. I'm like, what the hell did I get this for? What the hell is wrong with you? So our traditional ideas of curiosity, obviously curiosity is linked with exploratory behavior. It's, the old, well, how did Columbus discover America? Well, he really didn't, but he was curious about it, right?
Curious,
he discovered the West Indies. We can link it with positive emotions. What are the negative emotions once we learn something or learn behavior from negative emotions?
Well, so there are negative emotions associated, and I would say that sometimes we're even taught to have negative emotions around that. You've probably heard the saying, curiosity killed the cat.
Yeah, I used that to introduce you a little while ago, about an hour ago, when I said you were going to be on the show.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
So I hope I don't, So And I think about my own upbringing. I was brought up in a very common religion, and I was taught from a very early age that it was Eve's curiosity that made her eat that forbidden fruit. And, from the tree of knowledge of all things.
Right.
And they were kicked out, and it was horrible. So don't ask questions. And so we do have this sort of mixed relationship with curiosity. So sometimes the negative emotions come from the storyline we've been told around you should just accept.
Right.
You shouldn't question.
Right.
You should just know. And when you are curious and you admit to not knowing, there's a groundlessness in that sometimes people are uncomfortable with. Once you do know something, if it is that deficit curiosity, you're probably going to feel not as happy as if it's the awe-inspired curiosity, because think about, curiosity when it is something that's intrinsic.
Right.
All of a sudden it opens up other things that you're interested in. And I think about my dad with this. I was just visiting him in Idaho. He was interested in making doors, and then the woodwork led to welding, and he was just finishing a big welding project when I saw him. And so it usually adds more questions.
Right.
It doesn't go, oh, well, now I figured that out, my life's boring. It's you wake up and you go, what am I gonna learn today?
Right.
Because yesterday you were reinforced with that question, and it was a positive experience.
So you mentioned Eve and the Garden of the mythical Garden of Eden. Is that, and tell me if I'm wrong or if I'm throwing a curveball by you here, but is that optimal arousal theory?
Explain a little more.
Optimal arousal theory developed out of the need to explain this desire to seek out opportunities to engage in exploratory behaviors. So that story
Yes.
is an optimal arousal theory. Right?
Yes.
Okay. And then it goes on. It goes on to say that optimal arousal suggests that one can be motivated to maintain a pleasurable sense of arousal through exploratory behaviors.
Exploring is absolutely a way to have that.
And are there people that don't? Are there
Yes.
are there people that have zero curiosity?
I mean, I wouldn't
I
say
know a
zero.
reporter on a newspaper that has no curiosity at all.
No curiosity.
Yeah.
So how do their stories go?
They're boring.
Okay, there
They're
you go.
absolutely boring. Yeah.
I do want to point out for our listeners, Ed is so awesome. He has a thick stack of papers. He's really done his research.
I have.
So I'm just going to throw them back at you because I feel like you could read us the best possible answer to a lot of these things. So I would say that we are born very curious. It's a way of gathering information to survive, right? When you look at a child, we idealize childhood curiosity.
Yes.
And then we talk about how school kills that creativity and that curiosity, and we talk about how life drones it out of us. But there are things that we can do to stay curious, and there are things that we know take away somebody's willingness to be curious. And so I think we really need to normalize being wrong. And that's a scary thing in our society. We also shut down curiosity when we start listening to be right or to defend instead of to learn. And so you saying that there's a reporter that lacks curiosity, I can't imagine those questions would be very deep, that they'd build on whatever was actually going on in the conversation.
Right. They're never those questions. The stuff you read is just pablum. It is just pablum. And I think to myself, why did you get into this field?
It's also something that I have felt strongly in my own life, that curiosity is the antidote to so many negative experiences and emotions. So even if you have something that happens that you don't necessarily want, if you show up with curiosity, that whole experience from minute to minute is going to feel more pleasant, better, because you're giving it meaning by learning, right? And so when we look at people who aren't curious, it's often associated with things like depression, burnout, disconnect. And we have a lot of that. I look at the relationships that we have with people, And if we could build back in that listening, just listening longer, and with the intent of asking more questions, then we could practice that curiosity in a very natural way that's built into our daily lives.
So you mentioned depression.
Mm-hmm.
You mentioned and that's part of my next question. So yes, you answered my next question with depression, and the lack of curiosity with people that are suffering from depression. Mm-hmm. Also, neurodegenerative diseases as well, mm-hmm. and psychological disorders can affect memory. Mm-hmm. So, do they tie in memory and curiosity?
Yeah, but it's I feel bad how often I say this, but it's a complicated relationship.
Well, no, don't feel bad. I get it.
Sometimes not having the best memory, you get to learn things. As long as you're curious about it, you can show up and there's not as much frustration. Right. You're just relearning something, right? But there's definitely a relationship there. And when we look at depression, especially, we're not going to be happy all the time, right? We are going to have ups and downs. That's part of the human experience. But I can tell you that when I have clients that come in and they say, wow, I'm really struggling. I'm really depressed. I'm really having a hard time. And I go, okay, so let's break it down by the 5 senses. Where do you feel it in your body? Where do you, what does this, and that curiosity gives there just enough space that, again, it can help you experience it different. It's not going to magically make it go away, but you're going to experience it with a lot less displeasure.
Is being curious essential to being happy, and vice versa?
I would say there's not very many happy people that aren't curious, and curious people tend to be happier. It's interesting because it is very bi-directional. So happy people have more energy to be curious, but then having those new experiences, it also is a reason to be happy. Okay.
What about morbid curiosity? People that are so curious about death and negative stuff.
That we could actually link back to our evolution of our species and our survival. I once was reading a study of how, like, if there's a traffic accident, the number of people that rubberneck, that turn and look, right? And I remember doing that myself and being like, what is wrong with me?
Likewise.
And this researcher actually put it in a context that helped me have more compassion for why we do that. It's because we want to take in all the information we can so that we don't experience it ourselves, so that we avoid it in the future. And so sometimes that morbid curiosity is actually geared towards survival in a strange way.
Okay. All right. And if you know, and I'm not trying to throw curveballs by you here or anything, but can you explain what cognitive consistency theory is?
I have read that about 10 years ago, Ed.
Okay.
So I'm going to...
There'll be a quiz.
Yes.
There'll be a quiz here.
I'm going to model saying, I don't know. Go ahead and explain it even better.
Okay. Well, and because now you're curious and you'll relearn something from 10 years ago, we'll go over exactly what you just did. The theory assumes that when 2 or more simultaneously active cognitive structures are logically inconsistent, arousal is increased, which activates processes within the expected consequence of increasing consistency.
Okay, can you say that in English and not psychology?
I went to the source. I went to the source for that.
So it reminds me of some of the research that they do on infants. To see if they have a concept of numbers.
That's where I got this. Yes.
So,
thank you.
Well, this is from 10 years ago. Okay. But it is really fascinating. In child development, we used to really just think that newborns, infants, they're blobs, right? Like they really don't have a lot going on. And we couldn't be more wrong. And so when we look at the cognitive dissonance theory, one of the ways that they tested that was they would do an unexpected math situation for an infant. And they have these pacifiers, these binkies, that have sensors in it that show how quick they're sucking.
Okay.
It's a measurement. So it's an arousal measurement. So they have like a little situation where they have the infant watching a fake stage, and across the fake stage there's two people and they go behind a door and then two people come out of the door, and they show things that make sense mathematically for a while,
right.
and then they do something that doesn't. Like they have two people go in a door and then 7 people come out, and they look at the pacifier sucking rate to see, and that discrepancy in what they expected and what actually happened intensifies their arousal. So they start sucking really hard again.
Right.
And this ties into, whenever we do encounter things that we don't expect, we pay attention more. It's like we snap out of our habits.
Right.
And that is something that we sometimes tune out as adults. We don't pay attention to. But if it's big enough, then we do. We're forced to.
So there's a certain reward for uncertainty.
Absolutely.
And ambiguity, maybe.
Or not knowing, or
Right.
being wrong.
Right.
Just having something unexpected.
Right.
Yeah, so there is that reward. We have to be open to it, though. And when we look at the curiosity and how it can really benefit our relationships, sometimes if we're having a conversation with somebody and they do surprise us, maybe their political views don't line up with ours, we can shut down or we can open up.
Right.
And that's where really that that curiosity can come into play, where we can bridge gaps and become more understanding and more wise.
Right. When you say that, I'm going to take a left turn and explain a situation here at the radio station, and maybe you can chime in.
Okay.
There's a gentleman that walks by every day, and he then goes and sets up at Main Beach with some political signage. I am the opposite of the political signage that he puts up. I don't agree with him or the person that he's supporting or anything like that. Yet, when he used to walk by here, all we talked about was music. He would say, "Hey, do you know who does this song?" And we would go in a little back and forth about music. And I found him okay. I found him, a nice guy to talk to on that basis. Now, as I see him go by, I'm standoffish. I'm not curious about what he has to say anymore. I'm not looking forward to hearing what he has to say. I shut my curiosity down. I shut my. Is that common?
It is very common, and I say this with so much love. You're missing a huge opportunity.
Okay.
We have become so able to only interact with people that see the world how we do.
I should toss this in here. It isn't and again, my negative thinking isn't necessarily because of the support or whatever the opposite thing of politically of mine. It is his, and I should have said this to begin with. It is his. He's just. That's all he talks about now.
Okay.
There is no music. He shut the music off. It's like
Can you guide it back to?
I have tried. I've even mentioned to him, "Hey, man, I used to like when we would talk about music, but now it's just a constant barrage of this is what's going to happen. This is where I am." So I shut that down. And yes, and I'm probably still missing out on an opportunity, maybe a teaching opportunity. Who knows?
Yeah, so the teaching and learning usually go hand in hand.
Right.
But also that's a great example of when people speak to be right, we don't want to engage with that, right? When people speak because they're curious, it's very disarming. I usually wake up on the mornings that we're going to do our shows and I have butterflies in my belly. And then I remember, oh yeah, it's Ed. He shows up with curiosity, and my central nervous system immediately relaxes. It feels different to have a conversation with somebody that is curious. And so sometimes it is in our best interest to say, you're just talking to defend.
Right.
No, thank you.
Right.
And that's okay. You don't have to have a conversation with every person that doesn't believe.
I feel I have to here. I get very little work done at the radio station with people passing by.
But it is so great when we can have friends that are very different from us.
Right.
And, I show the clip, and I mentioned it to you before, Best in Show. It's a mockumentary, and there's this couple that does not look like they belong together.
Right.
And she goes, "We have a lot of common. I like soup. he likes soup. And so I think about that whenever I meet somebody, and I instantly feel those walls going up because they're wildly, animately showing me that their value system is different than mine.
Right.
I feel it, and then I go, oh, we both like soup. Right. And as soon as I tell myself we both like soup, then I can show up with curiosity. And sometimes when we do that, there's deepened understanding, or just realizing that it's not an us, them. Right. That there's enough room in this world for us to experience things very differently, and that's okay.
Right. So one of my best friends in the world, we see almost everything differently. Mm-hmm. We're opposites on just about everything. And we have common. We're respectful when we disagree.
That's a huge component.
And I think that the one thing that we do have in common is our cynicism.
Well, maybe don't take that whole book I sent you to heart if it keeps you.
It keeps me in a friendship. You mentioned kids.
Yes.
And again, we all love the wonder of the curiosity of a child.
Yeah.
Just watching an infant or a young toddler and their curiosity for something they haven't experienced is really it's better than any TV or movie you could ever see. It is just, it's wonderful.
Yeah, it's so wholesome.
Yes. And then you mentioned that it gets beaten out of us in school and as we get older. Why? What?
That is also a wonderful question that I'm going to answer in a couple of parts. Sometimes it's adult frustration. I just was hanging out with my nephews and my niece, and it was why? And that's a great question, but as an adult, sometimes you're like, I don't really want to explain this. And so that requires patience and openness. And we've talked on this show about screens and technology and how that's impacted childhood development. When you and I were kids, if we wanted to know something, we would go to the library. And we would go to the library, and while we were looking up the answer of one thing on a bookshelf, we would see 6 other books that would catch our curiosity. Right. And then we would leave with a whole stack of books. Now, if you're 6 and you want to know the capital of somewhere, you punch it in Google, and you have just that answer. You have that deficit curiosity field. End of story. Right. And so that has really impacted how we show up. And I'm not blaming technology. It can actually be a useful tool in facilitating our curiosity. But when we're lazy about it, it doesn't really do us any favors. We don't wander around bored the same way. And boredom and curiosity go together hand in hand. We have less boredom. Right. We have our schedules filled to the max. We've got soccer and then dance and then homework and then the tutor and then, so we don't have that same free time and space that we do. And then another part, we've talked about new stimulation, new experiences. Everything is new to a 2-year-old. If you take the same route to work, you talk to the same friends, you eat at the same place for lunch, where's that curiosity? Right. Where's those new experiences? We wake up and we so often go, I know exactly how my day is going to look. I've got this and this and this and this. And we don't wake up and lay there for a minute and go, wow, I wonder what today is going to bring. I wonder what I'm going to learn. I wonder who I'm going to meet. We don't really do that the same. Right. So there's a lot of reasons.
Brilliantly described, and thank you for that. And I no kidding, I wake up in the morning, I go, I can't wait for the day. I love whatever is going to happen. Whether it is, I know I'm going to take the canyon in or whatever, I know that.
Yeah.
But there's other aspects to that day that I can't wait.
Unknown, yeah. Yeah, and that's also a great curiosity practice. Sometimes if I notice that I'm getting in a funk, and especially if I'm going catastrophic, like I'm writing the worst case scenarios and I remind myself, I don't know what's going to happen in 5 minutes, let alone 5 years. Right. And so just having that curiosity and returning to that I don't know mindset is such a gift.
You mentioned kids and technology and getting just one answer from Google, which is right on target. Talk to us about how important attention is, because I believe now that in society, not just kids, but adults, we lack the attention span that we had 30 years ago or 40 years ago.
The Google brain.
Right.
Yeah. So when we look at sustained attention, it is easier with things that we're interested in, with things that we're curious about. And so if we can cultivate that in ourselves and in children, if we're in that position, then that can really be one of the ways that we learn how to have better attention. It's harder to pay attention to something that's we're not interested in, that's boring. Right. And so if you can really work on the questions more than the answers, then you're going to have that sustained attention for a lot longer.
What's your next curiosity?
My goodness.
You had the curiosity of not seeing your image, which I found unbelievably fascinating. I was absolutely drawn in by that. I'm thinking, could I do that? I don't know. I got to shave.
You just don't. You stop
right.
shaving, Ed. There were behavioral things, like I brushed my teeth so much,
right,
because I couldn't look in the mirror like after I ate seeds, So there are things that you have to adjust, but you could do it.
Right.
I think I'm still unpacking that one, because today was sort of the end of that experiment.
And at the end, at the very end, when you finally saw your image again for the first time in over 30 days, what did you see? What did you get from that? What did your research tell you?
So this is said with, I don't know how to say this without sounding kind of funny. I actually am prettier than I remembered.
There you go. All right.
I don't think that's a popular thing for a woman to say in her 40s. But I liked my wrinkles. Right. I have like a little bit more gray hair. I didn't really have much a month ago, and I noticed some, and I was like, "Ooh, this is exciting."
Right.
And I think it was just a really nice way to have a new lens. Every reflection is going to be flawed in some way. And I think I looked at myself, and instead of going, oh, this isn't perfect and this isn't straight, I was like, oh, my eyes really are like filled with so much joy this morning. Right. And I see it. It's palatable. So
speak to the 12-year-old girl or boy. Speak to the 12-year-old that may be overweight or may have something about their physical being that they're not happy about.
Yeah, I think that another thing that really drove my not looking at any reflection is just this whole selfie filter culture.
Right.
And I do have children. I also have a mom who I don't think has ever owned a full-length mirror. That is so empowering, growing up with a mom who really based her beauty on what she could do and not how her shirt fit with her jeans. Right? Like, and when you step away from just looking at the outside, you really can grow a lot more on the inside. And it sounds so silly, but I think if everyone just took a break from looking at their outside, I think back to when the best reflections we had were looking in a pond. What that must have been like to go through your whole life not really knowing what you presented yourself as. And to take some time really wondering and pondering that. And then you asked what my next curiosity is. Yeah. I think if we look at our bodies for what they can do, and this morning when I looked in the mirror, I was going to put makeup on, but I decided to do something else instead. And I reminded myself, I don't owe anyone my beauty. I don't owe anyone what I look like. I am worth so much more than that. And if we could tell that to our 12-year-olds, what can your body do? How does it feel? Can you make it so that it's a tool for your happiness? Then we would really shift that. And I think my next curiosity is definitely in testing the limits of my physical strength.
Okay.
And so,
which you've already done this year within the last couple of months. You've already
yeah.
Can I tell the audience what you did?
Sure, yeah.
So she kayaked all the way to Catalina Island with a torn ligament
and a fracture
in her leg.
Yeah, I did that.
Yeah.
So yeah, I think that that's one of the ways that I've really helped anchor into using this earth suit to the biggest advantage for my life, rather than getting hung up on what I look like. I've been able to say, okay, I can take on this challenge. And so it was actually before the ocean, I decided to write a book on mastering something in each element.
Right.
And so I did aerial silks off of a hot air balloon in Thailand in February. Then I moved on to water. That was the ocean canoeing to Catalina.
Right.
Next was the earth element, which was Kilimanjaro, but the leg is slowing me down. and that's just part of the journey. And when I show up with curiosity,
Right.
it's fascinating to see what this injury is teaching me and what the healing process is healing beyond just my knee. On the days where I don't have the curiosity, there might be some swear words. But my sister, who's a doctor, says swear words help reduce pain.
Really?
30%.
Well, I must be painless then. I walked through my day saying quite a few of them.
It was specifically the F word for this study. I'll forward it over to you.
I appreciate that. I'd love to read it. Thank
Yeah,
you.
it was putting your hand in a like ice bin. If you swore, it actually reduced the pain sensors.
Okay.
So, yeah.
Well, that's fascinating.
I know.
We're already on a different subject.
I know,
I'm
we
ready
gotta
for
go
it.
back.
I
Rein
swear.
it in.
Reel me back in on that one because I use a lot of expletives in my normal day-to-day. Even if I'm talking about something happy, I will use an expletive now and then. Yeah.
I think I use them sparingly, but when I do, they really feel powerful for me.
Right. It is empowering, isn't it?
Yes.
Expletives are empowering.
Well, yeah, I mean, considering that I was taught crap was a bad word that you would go to hell for.
Right. Right.
I really feel like I'm liberated
Well,
when
you
I
really read the wrong books as a kid. Okay, so before I let you go, I do have a curiosity about, you mentioned that the screens and technology is affecting the curiosity of children. And then with the 12-year-old that you are suggesting to, rightfully so, to look and see what your body can do instead of what it looks like. Have we already gone past that point of no return with our technology? Can we never go back to that, do you think?
I mean, I don't know that the goal is to go back, but I think that when we're adults and we're around children, the way that we speak about ourselves and the way that we model that can be extremely empowering. And so if you are a parent or an educator, I urge you to never show up and go like, oh, I'm fat, or oh, I don't look pretty today, or talk about things that are more meaningful.
Right.
Because really at the end of the day, that's not going to create a meaningful and beautiful life. And when we look at how young kids are when they start hating their bodies, it breaks my heart. So shift the conversations, take the full length mirrors out of your house, define your beauty in ways that are more sustainable, because everyone's gonna grow old, everyone's gonna change.
Right.
So why not really anchor it into something that is not as transient?
Right. And I promise I'll let you go after this.
You're good.
Do you have clients of that age? Do you have teen clients? And
I do.
These are the
I
things you
do.
tell them, and they're on the right footing?
Yeah. So
Okay.
I think my youngest client started with me when he was 6.
Okay.
And that's when the conversations begin. And if you have a conversation with a 6-year-old, it's great because they really haven't started the social comparisons yet.
Right.
And so you see in preschool, it's I'm the best jumper, I'm the best reader, I'm so great at this. And then by kindergarten, first grade, second grade, there's, well, actually, Johnny's better than me.
Right.
And that's okay. We want to raise kids that don't feel like they have to be the best,
Right.
but we want to raise kids that are empowered to be the best versions of themselves. And that doesn't involve a selfie filter
Right.
whatsoever.
Right. Professor Melissa Harris, how do we find you if somebody needs to contact you?
So you can find me at juniperhappinessconsulting.com. I have the Positive Psychology Wellness Lab here in Laguna Beach. And on the first Tuesday of every month, we do a community night. And so this next month, we're having Molly Behunin come in. She does hypnotherapy and sound healing, and it's just a really nice, relaxing night. We have structured it for people that have full schedules. So it goes from 6 until 6:45, and you need to sign up through the website in order to attend. And that's probably the best way to find me.
All right. And I will look forward to our next conversation as I look forward to all our conversations.
Me too. Thank you so much, Ed.
Thank you. Professor Melissa Harris, 11:42 the time, 18 shy of the noon hour. It's the all-new voice of Laguna.